Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, and my colleague Jessica Rogan and I are your daily hosts of the Gateway newsletter. We meet with the editors in the STLPR newsroom every weekday to bring you the top local stories of the day in a quick and easy 6-minute read by 6 a.m. In an age of overwhelm, it's a refreshing, thoughtful take on the news day, if we do say so ourselves. Fine-tune your daily news habit with the Gateway newsletter. Subscribe at stlpr.org/gateway.
From the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Tuesday, June 2nd. I'm Jonathan Ahl, in for Abby Larico. The Illinois state budget for the coming fiscal year is mostly flat, but one area that did see a pretty big spending increase is K-12 education.
Yeah, so there's a pretty big increase in this budget. There's a $350 million increase for evidence-based funding.
We'll learn more about the new Illinois budget and other bills that passed in the legislative session that ended early Monday morning. That's coming up on The Gateway. The state-appointed board overseeing the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department is considering massive raises for some of the department's highest-ranking officers. The proposal would increase pay by 16% for lieutenants, 18% for captains, 20% for majors, and 22% for lieutenant colonels, and would take effect July 1st. The board says the raises are needed to bring compensation in line with similar positions in other departments in the region and to improve recruitment and retention. Mayor Kara Spencer immediately criticized the proposal, saying the board did not include a fiscal note outlining the cost of the proposal, although the board's announcement of the plan cites a number of $2.3 million. Spencer and the city have been at odds with the board that was created by a statewide vote to put the department under state control. That includes pending lawsuits over the extent of the board's power. A newly appointed member of Mayor Kara Spencer's staff will focus on accelerating St. Louis's economic agenda and growth. St. Louis Public Radio's Kayvon Mansouri reports.
Spencer named Stephen Davis to the newly created Chief Economic Development Officer role in her office after a nearly year-long search. The mayor's office announced the position in August in hopes of bolstering the city's economic development efforts. Davis currently works as St. Louis Development Corporation's Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Initiatives and previously managed major projects at the city's development hub. In his new role, he will advise the mayor on business conditions and serve as a liaison to development stakeholders. The appointment comes amid change in city development leadership and a focus on bolstering development, particularly downtown. In March, SLDC's board named Stephen Westbrooks to head its operations. In a statement, Spencer said Davis brings the experience necessary to drive St. Louis's economic future. I'm Kayvon Mansouri, St. Louis Public Radio.
A task force studying recycling in St. Louis is recommending that the city shift to alley carts for both trash and recycling collection. The group presented its suggestions to Mayor Kara Spencer yesterday. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman reports.
The city stopped picking up recycling in the alleys last August due to high levels of contamination. It now collects recyclable materials at more than 50 drop-off locations. Trash is still collected in the alley. The task force is recommending that all residential customers get one roll cart for trash and yard waste. They could request a second cart for recycling at no extra fee. Alleyway collection would be very limited. Spencer told the task force she appreciated the work it was doing to increase recycling in the city.
The more we can recycle, the more we can divert into green waste, the better off we all are.
The group will do a study on the feasibility of roll carts before making its final recommendations. I'm Rachel Littman, St. Louis Public Radio.
A Cole County judge rejected an effort to strike Governor Mike Kehoe's tax plan from the August ballot. Kehoe strongly supports Amendment 5, which would expand the state's sales and use tax as a way to eliminate the income tax. Opponents of the measure sued, saying it violated constitutional prohibitions on addressing more than one subject and had a misleading ballot summary. Cole County Judge Chris Limbaugh rejected all of the plaintiffs' arguments yesterday, effectively keeping the amendment on the August 4th ballot. An attorney for the plaintiff in the case is appealing. Any challenges to Amendment 5 must be resolved in court by June 9th. 2 employees at the Maplewood-Richmond Heights School District are set to be deported this summer. St. Louis Public Radio's Hiba Ahmed reports teachers and families rallied in downtown St. Louis yesterday to protest the decision.
We are here, Nearly 100 people from the school community showed up as Alba del Socorro Matamoro Hernandez, a custodian in the district, attended an immigration check-in. She is set to be deported to Nicaragua along with her daughter and her husband, Buenares Flores Bravo, despite having a pending asylum case. He also worked in the district and was detained by ICE last month.
Estoy muy emocionada. No me esperaba tanto amor de la gente.
She says, quote, "I'm really emotional. I wasn't expecting so much love from the residents of St. Louis, Missouri, and the staff and students from the school." I'm Heba Ahmed, St. Louis Public Radio.
Free camping at the Missouri Department of Conservation's more primitive sites may go away. St. Louis Public Radio's Rebecca Thiel reports the agency is considering charging campers $5 per site for no more than 4 nights.
Campers would also be limited to purchasing no more than 3 permits in a row and 6 total per year. Officials with the MDC say the number of camping violations has gone up significantly since the pandemic. Last year, MDC gave out more than 150 warnings to campers who were outside designated areas or staying longer than allowed. In 2015, the agency only handed out 2. MDC is also seeing more safety and environmental problems at campsites, including vandalism and illegal activities. Agency officials say they're trying to balance the need for more places to camp in the state with making those areas more appealing to all visitors. Though there are no free year-round MDC campsites in the greater St. Louis area, there are some in nearby Lincoln, Warren, and Washington counties. I'm Rebecca Thiel, St. Louis Public Radio.
While local Illinois Republicans weren't thrilled with the $56 billion state budget passed over the weekend, they are celebrating some other legislative victories. St. Louis Public Radio's Will Bauer reports one proposal to change foreign language requirements for high schoolers received near unanimous bipartisan support.
The bill changes a state requirement that would have mandated students to take 2 years of a foreign language to graduate high school by the 2028-2029 school year. This amendment would allow students to substitute career and technical education, music, or art classes for those language requirements. Republican Representative Amy Ellick of Godfrey says it's a big win.
It is common sense. It gives our schools flexibility, but most importantly, our students have the flexibility in their schedule, and they can explore these career paths that maybe they hadn't thought of before.
Alex says there's already a shortage of foreign language teachers, especially in rural areas. She believes the bill, which now awaits the governor's signature, could help fill needs in the labor force. I'm Will Bauer, St. Louis Public Radio.
Lufthansa is expanding flights to St. Louis for the summer. Starting this month, the airline will fly direct between Frankfurt and St. Louis for 5 days a week. This is the 4th year Lufthansa has served the St. Louis market. It was the only direct flight from St. Louis to Europe until British Airways began flying direct to London in April. The expanded Lufthansa service will run through most of October and then return to 3 days a week. The Illinois General Assembly wrapped up its spring session late Sunday night, passing a $56 billion state budget for the next fiscal year. WBEZ State House reporter Isabella Nieto covered the happenings in Springfield for public radio stations across the state, including St. Louis Public Radio. She spoke with St. Louis Public Radio's Brian Moline about the session.
So, Isabella, let's start with the state budget. It spends a total of $55.9 billion. And how does that compare to the budget for the current fiscal year ending June 30th?
Yeah, so it's slightly up from the last fiscal year. I believe it's somewhere in the decimals. The last one was, I think, around $55.1 billion.
Okay, so a slight bump up from where we were last year. I understand there are some new revenue sources in this budget. Who will be paying more in Illinois taxes in the coming year?
Yeah, so the budget imposes new taxes on digital advertising, so companies that advertise, on our digital devices, on our TVs, our phones, our laptops, things like that. Social media platforms will be paying a new tax. Prediction markets, crypto, and fantasy sports will also have new taxes.
Yeah, and Illinois' gas tax is one of the higher in the Midwest. It does sound like the General Assembly is giving drivers a little bit of relief there, at least temporarily.
Yeah, so they've temporarily freezed the gas tax. They've pushed it about 6 months So originally, we were scheduled for a 1.3 cent gas tax increase that would have gone into effect on July 1st, but now it's been pushed to January. And a little bit as an aside, there's also another sales tax holiday on school supplies for a brief time in August from the 7th to the 16th.
Okay, so that gives folks a little bit of a break as they do their back-to-school shopping there in the month of August. As with most legislation in Illinois, it looks like the state budget passed along party lines, with most Democrats voting in favor. What did Republicans have to say about the spending plan?
Obviously, they think that the state budget is too high. This is the now highest state budget in Illinois history, I believe. And as we were kind of watching the debates, they're concerned that there isn't enough property tax relief. Their costs are only getting higher, and they're concerned that there hasn't been enough relief included in this state budget for, property taxpayers and taxpayers in general.
Education funding is always a hot topic in the state. And let's start with K through 12 schools in Illinois. How did they fare in this budget?
Yeah, so there's a pretty big increase in this budget. There's a $350 million increase for evidence-based funding. And there's also been a re-upping of a property tax relief program. So they've refunded the property tax relief program left out of last year's budget. So it offers school districts the option to apply for more funding if they need it.
As far as some non-budget items that passed this session, one thing that was a priority for Governor J.B. Pritzker was some kind of a cell phone ban in public schools, and I see that did get passed in the last couple of days of the session. How will that work in Illinois?
So that legislation requires school districts to adopt policies to ensure students do not use their cell phones during class time. They kind of specify bell-to-bell language, where districts have to create these policies based on their individual needs, but they need to create a policy that restricts cell phone use, with some exceptions for medical reasons or for people who use their cell phones for a communication device.
That was Illinois State House reporter Isabella Nieto speaking with STLPR's Brian Moline about the state's just concluded legislative session. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a member-supported service of the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Jonathan Ahl, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.
St. Louis is known for being a car city, but many commuters depend on public transportation to get to their jobs, schools, and events around town. St. Louis Public Radio wants to cover more stories about the region's transit system, and to inform our reporting, we want to hear from you. Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, engagement editor at STLPR, inviting you to join us this Thursday from noon to 2 at Sweetart in Midtown to share your thoughts. Find more information at stlpr.org/events.